Call to order the St. Joseph City Council of Monday, August 16th. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 2, Reese. Front and center. No, just kidding around. Stand right here, Reese. Put you right there. Where's the best camera angle? Okay, so I'm gonna go really slow. All you gotta do is repeat after me, all right? Raise your right hand. Or your right hand, okay. I, Reese Regal,
I, Reese Regal,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to support the Constitution of the United States,
to support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and to discharge faithfully the duties of
and to discharge faithfully the duties of
the position of police officer for St. Joseph, Minnesota.
the position of police officer for St. Joseph, Minnesota.
I will well and truly serve
I will well and truly serve
our sovereign country and state
our sovereign country and state
without favor or affection,
without favor or affection,
malice or ill will,
malice or ill will,
until I am legally discharged.
until I am legally discharged.
I will see and cause our community's peace
I will see and cause our community's peace
to be kept and preserved.
to be kept and preserved.
I will prevent to the best of my ability
I will prevent to the best of my ability
all offenses against that peace,
all offenses against that peace,
according to the law,
according to the law.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, young man.
Thank you.
And we're gonna have you sign that. Which one? Do we keep one?
Yeah.
Okay, sign that one. We'll give you that one. Oh. I'm gonna keep the one, you keep that one, and I'll keep that one. There you go. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, you two should get up and take a picture. Both of you together. Let's go.
I think they wanted you in it too.
Me?
Not that easy.
You gotta I'd never get in there with those. No, heck, are you crazy? Police officers, I know my boundaries, guys. Come on. Congratulations. Let's see, item 3, public comments. Anybody wishing to address the council? Step to the podium. Item 4, approval of the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the agenda. Any other additions or changes?
We just have an addition to the
Consent?
consent agenda for E.
Okay.
For E,
Okay.
for the least extension for bad habit.
Motion and second approving the agenda. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 5, consent agenda.
Move for approval with some discussion on E.
Second, motion and second on consent agenda. Let's talk about 5E. What do you want to know?
We sold that building.
Hasn't closed yet.
Has it closed yet?
Right.
Right, so we approved, the council approved a purchase agreement, and then that was executed with the buyer. They signed it.
Yeah.
So you also approved for SEH to do the planning of the property. So that is being done right now. So they'll be surveying it, preparing the new legal descriptions, and then that'll go to the planning commission and city council. So there's still some time yet before we close on it.
Okay, so is that thought gone to Shannon Wiggler and Associates?
Yeah,
They know
she's
all
well
about
aware that it's gonna take, yep, that we
Okay,
have to.
so fine, I just wanna make sure
Mhm.
that all people are involved here, so I know
Very-
about it.
Very good, thank you. Motion and second on the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are carried. Item 6, Northland Securities. This is some of the most exciting stuff.
It is, Mayor, thank you. Mayor, City Council, Tammy Undo with Northland Securities is to present on 2 items tonight, and Lori was so kind to get this set up, so I'm gonna just get this out. Mayor, City Council, again, Tammy Umdahl with Northland Securities. I think it's been about once a year I go before you to give you an overview of the city's outstanding debt, and we try to do that to coincide if the city is issuing bonds. So tonight, there's both. I'm gonna give you an overview of the city's outstanding debt that included preliminary estimates for the bonds that were priced this morning. After I go through the debt study, then I will speak specific to the 2021 A bonds that were priced this morning, and there is a resolution in your agenda packet this evening for the award of those bonds. Related to the debt study, I believe it's a presentation only, and there's no action related. I have a few slides, and I'm gonna move fairly quickly through this for the benefit of the audience. The mayor and city council get to hear this once a year, but for the public, this is really a broad look at the city's total outstanding debt. I work closely with your city staff, with Lori, on reviewing outstanding assessments and other things with respect to how that debt is repaid back. So I'm gonna jump ahead. We have the actual, for those viewing and for the benefit of the council, there's a full report. Tonight, I'm just gonna focus on the slides that are in that report. And the,
Tammy, so you know, we have like 3 new counselors, so.
I will go
You-
slower.
Well,
And I
I-
recognize your, I
You know,
recognize your face.
I didn't know how to say it, I didn't know how to say it nicely, but you know,
Yes.
this is probably not the night you wanna speed through everything, I just for
Mayor,
their
City
benefit.
Council, I will go at the speed that you want.
Okay.
So I will go through it. Lori, may
Not
I
that-
ask, on your computer, do you also have the PowerPoint? I can go through the PDF, but it might be a little bit easier if we have the PowerPoint.
I thought it was there, but I didn't see it. I'm sorry.
No worries, we'll go through it as presented. Mayor,
I
City Council.
didn't mean to throw you off.
Yeah, you did, believe me, you did, thank you. In your packet, there's a PowerPoint, the slides are the same. So this first one, chart 1, shows the tax levy for debt service. So the city has debt outstanding that's payable from different sources. This is looking solely at tax levy that is used to pay back ad valorem taxes debt. This also includes the bonds that are being issued today. They were estimates. The bond pricing came in even better than what was estimated several weeks ago, so there's a slight reduction in what is shown here before you. But what you'll see as I go through the city's outstanding debt, yes, the city does have outstanding debt, like a lot of other communities, that is issued to finance infrastructure, including streets, roads, utilities, and other municipal needs. St. Joe amortizes your debt very rapidly. In a moment, you're gonna see some slides that show that your debt gets paid off quickly. Amortization is just simply a big word for saying you pay off your debt fast when you do issue debt. So this is the first one, just looking at the tax levy. This next one shows the total debt outstanding at year-end projected. So this is meant to be what it's estimated to be at the end of 2021. Presently, the city has no plans, at least that I'm aware of, or Lori at this point, in issuing any more debt this year. So this is really reflective of what it will look like after you award the bonds tonight. When I made the comment just a moment ago saying you amortize your debt quickly, that slope of that slide shows that you're paying off those bonds quickly with the sources of revenue that is pledged. And speaking of sources of revenue, this is just a pie chart that says what is your total debt outstanding? How will that be repaid? What are the sources of revenue for that repayment? The majority of the debt outstanding is payable from ad valorem taxes, property tax levy, estimated to be 42% of that total. Then you can see special assessments that are levied against benefited property. When the city levies assessments for infrastructure, you often, or most of the time, issue bonds to finance that over a number of years, and the property owner pay that back over, or have the option to pay that back over a number of years. So about 17% of that outstanding debt would be repaid from special assessments. Sanitary sewer revenue is the second largest piece at 25%, water revenue at 14%. Sales tax revenue is shown here, but I would note in St. Joe, sales tax revenue is not directly pledged to bonds. You use it to cancel otherwise levies that you would be putting in place to service that debt and use sales tax revenue. And then all other revenues, cash on hand, and other smaller pieces. So again, what you should take away from this is the majority of the city's debt outstanding is payable from ad valorem taxes, and then the next largest pieces being from the utility funds.
Tammy,
Yes,
can we go back to chart 2?
we sure can.
So this is, and Lori, you can participate in this discussion too. So this is our total debt that we issue for streets, sewer, and it would include equipment certificates.
Yes, any of those debt issues, it includes everything.
And so we have several equipment certificates outstanding now that are part of this.
Correct?
And we haven't included tonight in this, you're talking about this bond issue. This does not include a potential equipment certificate in the event that we approve the purchase of a pumper and tanker for the fire department.
That is not included in here at this time because we
Okay.
didn't know the direction we're going yet.
Okay, so just for the purpose of the council here, there's $23 million of outstanding debt that we have issued in the past for all these projects. That includes equipment certificates for buying street sweepers or other things that we need to run the city. And I just want that to be part of our understanding that that's not included in here yet.
That is correct. So this chart is meant to say total projected debt outstanding, given what is known today of the city, inclusive of the 2021 A bonds, of all debt. So equipment certificates is an outstanding debt, so included in there.
Thank you.
Great question. Here gives you a more direct look at when I say the city amortizes your debt rapidly. You can see between now and 2035, 100% of the city's debt would be repaid. But even if you go out to by year 2027, for example, you're at over 70%, at 77%. So this is also reflected in the city's rating. We're going to talk about that in a moment too, meaning rating agencies view rapid amortization of debt as a credit positive, and that is true for St. Joe. The next few charts break down debt service. Debt service is a way of saying payment of principal and interest. So payment of principal and interest paid by water revenue. As you can see from this chart, when you look at total debt outstanding payable from these sources, the debt paid from water revenue is going to come to an end here in the next 5 years, and those bonds would be repaid that are supported directly by water revenue. Sewer revenue, a little bit longer, but you can see by year 2030, really that debt would go away by a large part that is supported directly by sewer revenue. And again, this is debt projected outstanding at year-end 2021. If there's other projects that come along between now and then, of course, that would impact what is shown here. Special assessment revenue, I talked about that. So sometimes, including this evening when the city issues bonds, a portion of that is payable from the special assessments levied against benefiting property. And here you can see debt that is projected to be repaid directly from those special assessment revenues. This moves around a little bit more because you have property owners that choose to pay off those special assessments on their property sooner. You have property transactions that cause those assessments to be paid at time of closing. But at least the best that staff and Northland estimates at this point, you can see that repayment from special assessments. Sales tax revenue, here again, this is not debt issued that was supported by sales tax. It's where the city is using sales tax revenue to pay off. While that's shown constant, it's pledged to one of the bond series, and it's relatively small amount as shown here. Debt service paid by other revenue, and here this includes where you have cash that is sitting in debt service funds from prepaid special assessments, other revenues. So this is more volatile, but there is some planned use of cash, etc. for that purpose. Now, that's the end of the slides. I'm not going to go through the schedules in the report. Within the report, there's other information, but I'm going to go and just bear with me presentation. There's a few things that I want to touch on credit rating that are not in this report. But for the council and anyone viewing that has a copy of the PowerPoint, I am on slide 15, and I want to talk a bit, especially with new council members, on credit rating. So when bonds are issued, it is a decision of the issuer to seek a rating on bonds. And the two credit rating agencies that are most often used by Minnesota issuers are Standard & Poor's Global, they go by now, and Moody's Investor Service. And in the case of St. Joe, you have had a rating with S&P Global, and that rating was recently affirmed. Technically, it's not the city that is rated, it is a specific bond series. So when you go out for a new bond series, you seek a rating, and then they affirm your rating on your outstanding bonds. S&P rates the city as AA minus, and I'm going to show you, or you have in your packet, a chart that compares that, a very strong rating. So that reflects their view, really, of the city's ability to repay its debt. That's an excellent rating. That's going to be reflected when I tell you about the results of the bond sale this morning. Certainly, Therese and Lori participate in that call, not more than participate. They lead and respond to the questions. So things like very strong management, rapid amortization of the debt, local economy, those all factor in. If you have not had a chance to review that rating report, you would find that of interest to view. That is very positive for the city. And it matters because even though you pay a fee to the rating agency to get that rating, that fee is more than offset by the lower interest rates you get because your bonds are with that high credit quality rating. There are some definitions that are in your PowerPoint. I'm not going to read you chapter and verse, but you may want to refer to that later. And when you hear minus, you think, well, that doesn't sound as good. It's just the their rating scale. So to give you an example, AAA is the highest, then AA plus, then AA, then AA minus. So you are at a very high credit rating for the city size and other factors, so you should feel confident in that. Everyone always wants to move up and get higher grades, and that is something that we always work on. But economy and other things that are long-term plays for the city are certainly things that, as you read that rating report, while a strong economy in comparison, those are things in the long term that could have an impact on moving up that rating. With that, Mayor, City Council, those were the slides that I wanted to go through. Happy to answer any questions or to get into more detail in the full report if there are questions. After your questions, then I will move on to talking about the 2021A bonds that were priced this morning.
Councilors, anything?
So Tammy, how many cities do you work with besides us? You personally, making presentations like this?
I probably work with, I haven't done a count lately, probably
Roughly.
30.
And are we, population-wise, where would we fit into your clientele?
You would fit right in the middle. I work with cities of all different size. I work in the metro area with some of the larger suburban communities. I also work in greater Minnesota with cities that are of your size and cities that are smaller than St. Joe.
And how would our bond rating of AA minus compare with other clients of yours?
It would be comparable. I work with cities of all rating size. I work with nobody lower than an A minus,
Okay.
but I also work with the AAAs. Right, I think S&P right now is at, I'm not going to quote it, I'll have to tell you it's changed recently. There's been some upgrades on the AAAs, for example, but I can give you some detail on specific by S&P, how many are they rate in each of those categories.
Yeah, no,
if
I don't
you're
need that.
interested.
How many cities are AAA rated?
There are
Like-
about 26 that S&P would have.
Okay. And the AA minus is just for this bond offering?
It is for, they assigned a AA minus to the 2021A, and they affirmed the AA minus on the city's outstanding
Oh, okay,
bonds.
so it's AA minus across the
Yes,
board?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Let's go into the 2021A.
Let's do that. So Mayor, City Councils, and those viewing, this morning, the 2021 A bonds as proposed to be issued by the city to finance street and utility improvements, and also a refunding of the Series 2012 A bonds for the sole purpose of interest savings. So no restructuring of those bonds. As noted, the bonds were rated AA- by S&P. The method of sale was a negotiated sale process. Blue Rose provided the municipal advisor pricing opinion. In summary, the final true interest cost is 1.22% on the 2021 A bonds. In July, on the 19th, when you set sail for this, the estimated rate at that time, given market conditions, was 1.59. What does that mean? It means that your total payments will be less, but it also means that the interest savings from refunding the 2012 A bonds will be about $110,000 gross savings after covering the cost of issuance. That was previously estimated when you determined to proceed with that refunding at $73,000. With that, Mayor, City Council, you have in your packet a resolution to award the sale. The final par amount is $5,375,000 compared to the original par amount that was $5,625,000. The difference comes because the bonds were priced with a premium. The premium is being used to reduce the par amount for the 2012A refunding portion. I know that always gets a little confusing because in your packet last week it had a different par amount. That final amount was not known until this morning when the bonds were priced.
Looking for a motion, it's
I'm looking for the resolution, so there's a number.
2021-40, is it 46? Yeah, 2021-46.
Move to Northland Securities to have Northland Securities issue the bond. That's the correct language you got.
There
It's
would be a
just a
resolution if you want to refer to the exact, or that would suffice if the,
Consider adopting the resolution.
Adopting resolution 2021-46.
there you go, Mayor.
And I second
Move
it.
to approve resolution 2021-40.
And I second that. Motion and second approving resolution 2021-46. Further questions or concerns? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are carried.
Mayor, City Council, thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. Good job. Thank you, Lori. Therese. Now item 7, the budget. Another presentation? Woo-woo.
Thanks, Tammy.
Thank you, Tammy.
So tonight, for your consideration, we've been kind of taking the budget piece by piece, and tonight I have another piece to the budget. The Visitors Bureau, the EDA, and the Fire Board have recently met to kind of go through their budget with their budget recommendations. Also, at one of your previous meetings, you asked for further description of the dues and memberships, a little more information on that, so I have that in the packet as well. So first for dues and memberships, just kind of going down my summary there. There were a couple changes since we met last time for the dues and memberships. First of all, the League of Minnesota Cities, there was a slight change in their membership fee. Their board met in August and is recommending a 4% overall increase in their membership dues. I think they're looking at hiring a couple new staff on board to help with things like the COVID issues, pandemic issues, a lot of upcoming changes that have happened. They've realized they needed some additional research personnel. The other dues that I increased slightly for the Whitney Senior Center, the director for the Whitney Senior Center has said that they filled the 25 membership subsidies that we've provided for seniors, and they had a couple people that they've had to turn away, so they're asking for a little bit higher in the dues, so I bumped it up to 30 members for a subsidy for those memberships. The other membership that I wanted to point out and this was brought up last time when the dues and memberships were presented, is that the Greater St. Cloud Development Corp., we did not budget, or did not include in the 2022 budget, and that's still a discussion item for the council. The EDA was still reviewing that as well, so I think they're gonna have further discussion on that at their meeting tomorrow. I think that was, oh, and then the Park and Rec Association, now that we have a new rec director on board, she is requesting to be part of that, the Minnesota Recreation and Park Association. And those annual dues are $300, so. Followed by the summary of the numbers of the different memberships is a description of what each of the memberships does. So just to give you a little bit more of a background on them. So I don't know if anybody had questions, comments on that piece?
I have comments on the EDA. When did the EDA discuss the budget?
So the EDA briefly discussed it at the last meeting, but the intent is to discuss it at tomorrow's meeting and develop a formal recommendation. A lot of time was spent on the CBB agenda item at the last EDA meeting, so we did not have time to cover all of the EDA stuff, so that will be formally recommended tomorrow,
When was the last EDA meeting? 2 months ago?
July.
Did we have an EDA meeting last month?
Yep.
Was I there?
No.
Oh. Never mind then. Never mind. I couldn't remember it. That's why I said, did we talk about that? Okay.
Yeah, so I would
Alright.
say generally the EDA was supportive of the CVB items, specifically the membership idea, but we ran out of time. We got right up to the 1 o'clock and we had folks that had to get going, so.
I didn't see it, but, and I don't have my computer in front of me, but did they talk about the site hosting thing that might change? We had issues with the person that was hosting it, and Mary Bruno had some issues about getting it updated. And I know she and I had talked about, we had an issue because the site was down, the guy didn't know it, we couldn't get a hold of him.
The website for Joetown?
Yeah,
I think that there were some technical issues that were frustrating Mary with part of that.
she had talked about finding a different host site, or different site to host it. And I didn't know if she had come up with costs on the difference or anything.
No, so that hasn't been discussed.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. We should bring that up, though. We should add that to the discussion point. Very frustrating working with him. He's just terrible. Anyway.
If you don't have questions on the dues and memberships, maybe we can talk a couple points on the EDA and the CVB.
Okay.
What the EDA is finding, they're recommending increasing the facade and demolition grants, just costs of service. It's the subsidies that we were doing on there, the match grants, don't hardly cover anything anymore. So the request is to increase both of those by $1,000 each to kind of help offset those costs and help our businesses with some of those little remodel projects they may do.
Have we, used that last year, or all of it?
Yeah,
or
great
some of it?
question. So I actually just looked this up. So we've only had 2 facade grants from 2017 to 2021.
Yeah,
So it hasn't been tapped into too much.
right.
I guess one of the intent is, well, maybe if we raise it by 1,000, let's see if we get more folks that bite to apply. Part of, I think, the factor is that, time is money. So sometimes folks don't want to go that extra route to get the grant because it's a approval process that goes
Yep.
through a board and that.
Yep.
So.
The other item in the EDA is, the EDA is recommending doing a strategic plan similar to what was done with the CVB. Much of that can be done in-house with Nate, and we would use help like with engineering, legal, other things that may come up. We would use outside sources, so the budget that would be set aside is to help with some of those professional services that might come into play.
And you didn't mention bullet point number 3, program funding. What's that
Oh, I'm sorry.
under EDA?
So every year, part of the tax levy is to set aside for economic development and just general programming with what the EDA does. The goal has been to increase that $5,000 a year to get it closer to a more sustainable, being able to help with bigger projects. right now, we're recommending to go from 45,000 up to 50,000. There is a reserve set aside right now for from that money, of about 200,000. Again, that can be taken, that can be used up pretty quickly on a large project that maybe, the EDA is looking at trying to land a nice business or something here.
So when we offset the cost of lodging tax, that didn't come from that source though, right? It came from a
Mm-mm.
different source?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So I think all of this needs to be discussed at the EDA meeting tomorrow. And then
Agreed.
we can come back to the city
And-
council.
And I
on this
promise
stuff.
I'll
So
be
I don't-
there.
I haven't wrapped my brain around, we increased the facade grant from 1,000 to 2,000, but we've only done 2 grants in the
Yeah.
last 7 years. What would be the point, right? It sounds good, but are people using the money?
Did we-
Same with the demolition grant. So it's, I know it would cost more now than it did 7 years ago to do a facade or demo or whatever, but people aren't tapping into it now, so I don't know what the point would be.
Did Hudson and Company come for a facade grant? Because they
Yeah.
redid that?
Correct.
I guess they-
Yeah, so
They're
that would
the
be,
one.
yeah, that'd be one of the applicants.
Yeah.
Correct, yep. So, part of it too is to get in front of if there's any concerns from the council, so we can relay that to the EDA tomorrow as well. So, that's part of the purpose of bringing it
But
tonight
When
too.
we're
Lori,
look- oh.
Yeah, but-
Lori, if we increase the grant on the facade from 1,000 to 2,000 and demolition from 2,500, do you put that in the budget, like we're gonna spend it?
That comes
Yep.
out of that EDA, that 50,000 in the EDA
So it
fund.
goes into the budget like we're gonna spend it, even though we may not, right?
And if we don't, then we set it aside in reserve, and that's where that reserve fund now is built up to 200,000 to kind of help with these businesses for
Got it. So if it's not
development.
used, then it gets into the reserve
EDA
fund.
reserve.
And that's where the lodging tax came out of the reserve fund?
That came out of unspent professional services
Okay.
that we use there.
And when you were looking back, are you looking back the year? I heard several years. So it,
For the facade grant,
for,
there hasn't been
yeah,
that
for
many.
utilizing it. So you were looking at it the last several years or the last year?
The last 3 years is what Nate looked up, but it was very popular at its inception, so we have
So
several businesses that used
Before
it.
COVID hit, it was being used.
I would say, before 2017, from 2010 to 2015, it was tapped into a lot more. Then 2017, since then we've only had the 2 applicants. So, going to the strategic plan topic, so part of that idea too is to evaluate the programs that we are offering, the facade, the demolition, maybe there's other programs out there that similar EDAs are offering, and try to evaluate some of that too, to make sure that our incentives are as competitive as possible and up to par, so we can encourage that usage.
Yeah, I just want to add on to that. These are kind of boilerplate stuff that we've had in place for like 20 years or whatever, since Cynthia Smith-Strack who's here. And I don't know that they've evolved either into what other people are using, or what we could do, throw them away and start something new ourselves. So you're right, they've been around for a while, and the evaluation of what's working, what's not is really needed.
Yeah, I would support that. I think too, moving forward,
Money's money.
fresh eyes is not a bad thing.
Yeah. Anything else? So I was just gonna mention, next week we have a workshop, right? And a big portion of next week is also budget, I just
Right.
assume.
That is
So
the
whatever
big
we-
point of that workshop.
Whatever we're talking about
so.
today, we're gonna rehash again, in a week. And what's the drop dead dates again for,
September 30th,
September
we have to
30th.
have the preliminary levy set,
okay.
so.
So next week is, like, we wanna hammer out as much as we can prior to the end of next month.
Mhm.
And gives you time a little bit, you three, to kind of talk to Lori or Therese or whomever about kind of specifics behind budgeting and stuff.
Mhm.
No direct, any
So a
other?
couple other
okay.
boards then under for your consideration then, the CVB also had recommended their budget to increase some, and they are working with the EDA right now. Some of that is implementing their strategic plan that they had in place. They are looking at, like a membership type program that businesses could belong to that would help offset some of the increased cost to implement their, strategic plan. So again, the EDA reviewed some of those requests at the last meeting, and I think there's gonna be further discussion tomorrow, as well, to kind of continue that discussion.
And I know we both missed the CVB meeting, but the CVB discussed that membership thing?
Yeah, so there was low attendance at the last CVB, but they did discuss that, correct?
So is that like competing interest, CVB membership versus St. Joe Chamber membership? For businesses, I
different-
mean?
No, I think the intent really is to implement some of the strategic plan initiatives. So that money that's used is gonna go towards not just promoting and additional advertisement type of opportunities for the folks that do pay, but it will go towards the general goals of the CVB too, so they can tap into that quickly and then utilize those funds to implement some of their initiatives.
And I'll be a little more blunt. If I'm a member of the chamber, now I might have to pay for both. And now I'm gonna pick and choose,
Potentially, because I think they have a different
chamber-
mission statement from each.
Yeah.
And so a business owner will have to decide if they want to participate in a membership fee in both or
Right.
not. I mean, we wouldn't we wouldn't ignore them on the CVB if they chose not to do a membership. I don't think that's the intent, but maybe somebody who's paying a membership might get a little bit more advertising on the
Yep.
Facebook page or.
So a lot of it probably will come down to additional social media boosted posts. Some of the photography that we did, the videos that we did, if you become a paying member, then you get additional advertisement or promotion of those
Yep.
things.
And so I'll be even more blunt. So eventually, it could lead to the end of the chamber, because all the chamber wants to be part of CVB and get the advertising and everything else, potentially. I mean,
I
if
think
I have
they'd
to
have
pay
to
for
look at
both
what
and
their
I'm getting
mission
more,
statement is.
yep, but if I have to pay for both, I'm getting more plugs from the CVB. You know, I totally agree. I'm just saying, the long-term projection would say that I'm not gonna pay for both, like we look at memberships.
Mhm.
And I'm gonna, invest where I need to invest and not where I don't need to invest. And so, before we head down memberships, we should have that discussion about what it means for the other businesses that may or may not become part of. Because if the chamber dries up, then those others may not have an avenue. And what kind of, outlook do we have for those businesses
Mhm.
on the skirts that, invest that wouldn't be part of CVB? So,
Good
Anyway.
discussion for tomorrow's
Yeah.
meeting too with the.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep, as I said, I think
Okay.
some of that will be covered tomorrow too.
okay. Other questions, issues, concerns?
The final, then if you're okay with the CVB and the EDA with where we're at and the membership dues, the final board that met was the fire board, and Bob and I had attended that meeting last week. So kind of the couple of bullet points that are on the fire board for your consideration, and it does take a council action to move some of these items forward. If not tonight, at least for discussion tonight. The fire board recommended increasing the chief's salary from $6,000 a year to $8,000 a year. The assistant chief from $3,500 to $5,000 a year. Increasing the fire call and drill time pay from $12 an hour to $16 an hour. And then that included doing fire truck checks, which is about 4 hours a week that they spend to that. Currently, they weren't getting any drill time for that, so including that in there. The fire board approved doing a clothing stipend of $30 per year per firefighter to get like their logo t-shirts and apparel, that the city would do the ordering for them, but they would come up with the t-shirts or sweatshirts, ball caps that would be available for order. The municipal contribution is at 0 with the pension fund, so the fire board has agreed a minimum contribution of $3,000 a year, so in the budget, that is what we're putting in there. I believe the fire board had discussed increasing the pension, the annual pension rate from 2,300 to 2,400. There has not been a council action on that yet. That is, it's an amendment to the fire relief bylaws and an approval of the city council for that action. But for the budget as of tonight, their pension fund was based on 2,300 per year in their pension contribution. And the final item for more discussion tonight is the purchase of the second pumper slash tanker truck. So it'll actually one truck doing both those services. In the budget, the fire board had replacement of the ladder scheduled for 2021, so that has been part of their 5-year capital equipment plan. And looking at the ladder trucks that are servicing in the mutual aid, the surrounding area, and looking at what the ISO rating came in, which is an insurance rating, that recommended that a second pumper or tanker would be needed to service areas outside of the a fire hydrant area. I don't know, like some of the firefighters can probably speak to this better than I can, but looking at what the current gallons that they're able to put out on a fire is about 4,000 gallons, I believe. If they go to a structure fire, that doesn't take long to go through 4,000 gallons. Yes, they can call in mutual aid. It could take half an hour for another truck to get there. So you might have a gap of time before there's more water available to put out a large structure fire. That's a little bit out of our fire hydrant area. So also in the winter, considering line freezes and that sort of thing, it's really easy for the pumper truck to go out of service with that line freeze until they can take care of that. Again, minutes mean a structure can be burnt down. So minutes matter, I guess, in this situation. The fire board had approved a recommendation to move forward with the fire truck on a vote of 2-1. Bob dissented on the city's behalf for that recommendation, and one of the things that he was considering is if we would do a fire study, if that meant something different in the long term of that fire truck. But Bob can probably speak for himself better than I can speak for Bob. So, but that was one of the items discussed at the meeting.
Oh, say that again. I wasn't.
The fire service, if we do a fire service study, that may change the need for the truck based
Right,
on the
and
results
then,
of that
okay,
study.
I can take it from there. And that's what I'm voting on no on the purchase of the pumper tanker, because there is a study in effect right now that is going on. Lori can speak on that too, if she wants to jump in on that one. She knows a little bit more than I. You know, supposedly the administration of the fire department thinks this is a dead issue, which it isn't. You know, so I'm looking at, because there's been a lot of talk about, oh, we need a full-time chief, we need this, we need that, because we can't retain officers, so a full-time chief would accomplish where we don't need all that. Okay, I'm looking at the bigger picture to solve the issue in the whole area. You know, and I believe in this study to consolidate all the small little departments under one umbrella to solve the issue for, 2-3 years down the road or even sooner. And, and get everybody in the picture. Instead of one department here, one department there, everybody's running their own little show. Let's bring it all together. We share equipment anyway right now, so we can bring all that equipment under a organized effort.
What departments are you talking? Okay, remember, you're talking to a newbie here.
Yeah.
So are you talking the city's departments or?
I'm talking Sauk Rapids, Sartell,
Okay,
Wake
surrounding,
Park, St.
okay.
Augusta, St. John's.
Okay,
Get together with all these departments. The legislature just passed a law where we can create a fire district within that area.
okay.
So instead of having a little bit out of each city, there would be one big district. It's like a school board.
Okay.
So you'd have a fire district where they would tax according to properties or
So they're
area.
meeting on that, and they're also doing a survey on that.
Right,
Is
they're
that-
doing
am
the
I
study.
understanding
They're
that
doing the
right? Okay.
study. I'm not involved in it yet. I
Okay.
plan on getting involved in it as soon as I find a little bit more about what's going on.
Okay.
I think Wade Park took the bull by the horns and started that with a few people. I'm not sure.
Do you? Yeah,
So-
I was just,
Yeah, so, at the end of May, the area administrators, meaning St. Joseph, Sartell, Sauk Rapids, St. Augusta, Way Park, we received a proposal from a consultant, on doing a fire study. And it was initiated, with the area administrators, we try to connect on, shared issues and interests, and if we can work together. So, Way Park did initiate a consultant that has expertise in doing these type of studies. So the intent is for the consultant to study not only the individual cities, but also if we could work collaboratively and share resources. And they presented their proposal at the end of May, and actually we are discussing bringing forth to our areas, well, to you all in September, essentially. So we're
that would
getting
be done by
new
September?
information on a timeline if we will move forward with this. Again, the intent would be for all the area cities to participate. So so each city has to bring it back to their respective councils for approval.
Right.
So, Bob, there is no study going on right now.
It's going.
There's a conversation about a study
Right.
that might happen.
Great. That's correct.
It's the groundwork to get the study going, since the legislature just passed the laws where you can create a fire district.
And one of the things I think needs to be said is that there already is in existence something called mutual aid.
Right.
How does mutual aid work?
Basically, you sign an MOU every year based upon, you know, I don't know.
Practically, how does mutual aid work? It means when our firefighters are on a scene and they need help, they can call in Avon.
Yeah, I'm
Wade
not, I'm
Park.
sure it's all on the mutual aid. I imagine everybody within the area.
Yeah. So, they're all, I mean, you're making it sound like this study is gonna somehow combine resources so we can start doing things together. There already is a mechanism amongst fire departments,
Not administration-wise, I'm talking.
not administration-wise, but just from
Right.
logistically putting a fire out, called mutual aid. So, it's not, it's not, we have that in place. I look at this equipment purchase and the study is apples and oranges. I mean, when was the last time the fire department had a piece of equipment purchased?
2012.
2012, 9 years ago. The tanker was bought in 1999. We have a tanker and we have a pumper. When was the pumper purchased? I don't see that on this schedule, Lori. When was the pumper? How long has a pumper been around?
That's engine number 1, 2012.
Okay. So I think we have to be more, well, so you voted no just because you want to wait for the study? As far as your
Well,
fire board
and
vote?
also, I didn't see nothing to show that we needed this new piece of equipment. I mean, at first, it was the ladder truck, you know, and then all of a sudden, this pumper took over the need for the ladder truck. You know, that, you know, well, what is it? Because we can't buy $1 million worth of equipment every year or replace it.
But you're making it sound like we have to buy $1 million, like we'd have to spend the $1 million in that year. This gets financed, just like this presentation that we
Right.
had. So you look at an $800,000 pumper tanker, one unit that can do both. We already have 100,000 in reserves.
That's from the ladder trucks.
That will knock the price down to 700. And then we finance that through an equipment certificate and pay it off over 7 years.
Well, yeah, that's how city government
Easy.
works.
Right.
I understand the, you know, the math there, but, I still don't think, it didn't show me the need. It was just a flip-flop from one piece of equipment to the next, and, you know, No, I disagree.
Are we
I mean,
having a
that's
lot
how
of-
My opinion went.
My question would be, I call us the worker bees, and the worker bees, if they are, if it's breaking down quite a bit, you know, it's not any different than our car in our garage, you know, when we need to get into it, it needs to be working, it needs to, I don't know anything, this is new to me, so I don't know, you know, is it breaking down a lot? Are we having problems with it?
No. No.
You know, what is the need? I mean, is it,
The one
are we
person-
feeling the want or the need? Yeah.
No,
You know,
and then
and-
the argument goes need versus want. I think it's a want and not a need.
Let's,
No.
well, I was gonna say, before the 24th, can we get some of these answers
Yeah.
to these
That's
questions?
what I was gonna ask.
How often has it been used? How
Yeah.
often is it breaking down? What's the maintenance record on it? All those things.
I had put an email to the chief because I didn't have his number, and so, because I wanted to, because I'm a newbie, and I just wanted to be able to see, and what, you know, the frustration, if you guys are beating your head up against the wall, or it's, you know, it's a want, and it's, you know, to see further coming down the pike.
I guess my question is too, is the other, you know, we call mutual aid, the other departments that are around us, what type of equipment do they have? Do they have also a pumper and a tanker, or do they have a pumper and a tanker? Right, so, you know, what's the need to have, I mean, again, the want versus the need, we talk about, I know I've talked to a couple of you about fiscally
the time.
responsibility as
I
well.
think
I get the
time too.
Let's not include them. Let's
Yeah.
talk on.
But, you know, again, the question is, if they're around the area and they have that as well, I understand the time, the basin, we have a pumper, we have a tanker, how fast can they get there? How many fires, you can't predict fires, I get that, I understand that as well. You know, how, you know, you talk about the fire hydrants and not being in certain areas. How many areas do we have where houses and businesses where we don't have the hydrants? You know what I'm saying? Is it an expanded
I
area?
agree.
We did,
with
and we
Rick.
just did expand our area
Right.
with more township land, so we can bring that back and show you as well.
You know, you talk, also looking at all the area calls they've had, right?
Yep.
You know, you guys, the fire department here does a lot of calls, but
Yep.
222 of those are medical compared to 41 this year of fire, of the total 263.
Yep.
Again, can't predict fires, I get that. I understand what you're saying too, is be prepared, don't react, maybe
The
when.
equipment we have now
Right.
works great because these guys really keep it
Right.
maintained. You don't want to be the farmer out in the middle of St. Wendell that has a fire and our equipment shows up in the middle of winter
It doesn't.
and it freezes up or doesn't work.
Mhm.
I don't think there's anything wrong with having a backup.
Well, if anything, this probably wouldn't be the backup, this would be the show and maybe the
Well,
other. power
whatever,
tank, but
either
yeah.
way, it's just general capital equipment purchases for something as serious as this. We know it's not used all the time, but when you need it, you need it.
Mhm.
And the last time anything was purchased was, 9 years ago? So it would just seem to make sense that we would rotate and be able to upgrade equipment over time.
And we do that. And we do that. We're not replacing a piece of equipment with this.
Correct.
Well,
We're
For
over-
me, I would like a
We're
little bit more
jumping over
information.
Hold on,
the
counselors?
needed, the
What
so-called needed ladder truck that was a hot item, and now it's on the back burner for this
So-
pumper truck, which came by another firefighter, our former administrator was a firefighter, and he suggested this. And then all of a sudden it was, oh, that's a good idea too, let's just get rid of the issue for the fire truck and get this pumper
So-
truck, cause our ISO rating
So we're
will be
gonna-
better. And we
so-
investigated that.
We got it.
You know,
So,
I mean,
we'll-
there's more to the story than what you're hearing.
so the fire
but-
department has reprioritized their needs and wants.
Yeah.
And we'll have more discussion about it as council.
Mhm.
We're asking for more, you know, some of
Thank
the
you.
answers for the questions we brought up. I'm gonna go back to salary, so you guys all calm down. When's the last
What do
time?
you think about the fire pumper tanker? You haven't opined.
I don't need to opine yet. I want some,
I want
I
more
want salary.
information, yeah.
When's the last time the guys got their increases? Have they gotten an increase recently?
2020, they had an increase.
From what to what? Do you remember?
We just talked about it
Just, we
today.
just talked about
Yeah.
that today.
So, but I mean, it's just like a year ago, you got
I
an
think it was
increase.
1,000, the assistant chief,
Hold
I
on,
think
hold
was
on, hold on.
1,000, and I think the chief was 2,000, but I can't remember.
Can you repeat that?
So you,
I believe the
can
chief
get
went
those
up
numbers.
2,000 and the assistant chief went up 1,000, starting in the year 2020, but I'm not 100% positive on it. And I didn't bring the piece of paper with me.
so again, the salary things, like, you just got one a year ago. And so I don't know if it's about retention or recruitment or anything like that, but we just, I think you were still on the board at the time.
Yeah.
We just went through this, so I'm just kinda curious what the incentive is behind that. Or,
A lot
I
of
mean,
it's
that's
the
something we should
increased
just-
call, the increase in administrative time that it's taking, the NFP, the fire safety standards,
Okay.
there's new laws, just like all our departments, we're faced with so many more regulations, and it's really just getting taxing
so it's
on their
not the
time.
fire department, it's all the paperwork and admin and all the stuff that goes in.
Besides the increased number of calls
Yep,
too, I
yep,
mean, that
yep.
does add into it as well, but
And
that
so,
is the
part of that
rationale.
is managing EMT as well as fire, correct? It's the whole
Right.
smash.
Right,
So if we, again, through some kind of reorg, if we separate EMT from fire, that increase may not be necessary.
and I think there's some,
talked
I
about
I
that.
know the fire chief, the police chief, and the administrator have met with Mayo
Okay.
with Mayo Ambulance Service to talk about, trying to relieve some of that, but
Yep.
there might be some relief, they're still gonna do EMT calls.
Okay, okay.
So it might maybe reduces the fire calls some, or, some of the responses, but
Okay.
it's still gonna have a high number.
Okay. Okay.
Well, and I think part of this is to be competitive with other fire departments, isn't it?
Yep.
And we have those numbers somewhere, right?
We
Or
do.
Kayla's put
Yeah,
them together?
Kayla
look at
actually had gathered that actually in May,
Okay,
so I
So we
do
can
have
look at
those
that.
figures.
That would be great.
Most of the other fire departments are having the same problem,
Right, retention.
yeah, well,
Yep.
because people move around here and
How
there.
many-
and-
how many guys are you short right now? Like, how many? Five? And we have some applicants ready for you guys to look at? Okay.
We do.
And that's a total of, how many, 30? Okay. Okay. So, again, I'm not ready to do anything until we have
I'm
some
not
better
either.
information, and we'll talk about it on the 24th. Yep, we're not gonna get in this budget anyway, it's next year anyway, so. Other questions about budget, anything else?
Why, you've been working on it for a year. How is it just coming to you now?
Part of this year, next year's budget, that's how it's coming to us now.
You,
I mean, that's what we're talking about here, this is, wasn't last year, it was this year. Okay,
We could look at the fire truck on a separate action, not part of the budget, because we'd be issuing equipment certificates and we can make that work in the budget, but that doesn't mean you have to make a decision tonight, but we can take a separate action from the budget and not confuse the two if
Okay.
necessary, so.
okay, well, let's bring that up next week as well,
Mhm.
how we separate them potentially.
And you guys knew about this pumper coming up. I know I mentioned it quite a few times at meetings. It just hasn't been.
Lori, anything else
In
on
your
budget
face.
right now?
I think that's it. It gives us some direction, get you some answers to questions, and
Okay.
try to bring back some more information for next week's meeting. Thank you.
Okay.
You.
Number 8, department head reports. Therese?
Yeah, so this last month, as you're well aware, I've had meetings with Greg Jake with the YMCA on potentially exploring the operations part of the community center, and I know he presented to you at one of your workshops too, so those conversations are still happening. Sue Palmer with CSB, SJU, we try to have a Zoom meeting monthly, just to keep the lines of communication open on what's happening in the city, what's happening on the college and so forth. So we typically, like I said, monthly, sometimes it doesn't happen every month. So the last month I had that with her, meeting with staff regularly on the budget. Nate and I attend the Advocates for Community meeting at CSB that is focused on looking at equity and inclusiveness. Attorney Sue and Randy Sabart and I met with the property owner of Verbats and and his attorney in regards to the improvements planned for 20th Avenue Southeast. We've had some positions open. You swore in a new officer this evening, so we had conducted that interview with the personnel committee. We also just closed the application process for a new position, the police clerk. I was out of the office last week, and the deadline was last Friday, so there was a number of them that came in while I was out. So I don't know that final count, but we actually had a good number that applied for that position. So more to come on that. We'll be looking at, reviewing, scoring those, and then narrowing that down, and then setting those interviews up with the personnel committee. So meetings that are coming up, I have a meeting with Murray Mack tomorrow in regards to, with HMA, next steps. And then we anticipate doing a community center, a committee meeting tentatively for August 31st, still finalizing that. Kayla, Lori, and I will be meeting with Laserfish in regards to workflow, potentially working with them on that. The other thing that I will get out to you by the end of the week is we had issued the RFP for the fundraising consultant. So those came in, and so I'll be getting those out to you all to review those. One of the items that was asked of me was to look at adopting or drafting a conflict of interest, whether it be a policy or an ordinance on a former employee when they leave employment here, doing a couple years where they wouldn't work with the city. I couldn't find any good examples. When I researched it, I reached out to area cities to see if they had anything that I could take a look at. There was just nothing out there, but I also knew I needed to seek legal advice from that on that as well. So I did reach out to our labor attorney on that, and was advised that there would be legal issues by adopting something for a former employee. So I'm not suggesting that we pursue that on advice of legal counsel. However, we did discuss having language added within our personnel policy for current employees to have language on conflict of interest. So expect something forthcoming. I'll work with drafting that up and working with the personnel committee on that. With having three new members this year on our council, one of the things that I would like to ask you is if you'd like the League of Minnesota Cities to do training. They're willing to do it. So if it's something of interest, I was thinking maybe September, probably more likely October, we could do a training session on roles and responsibilities, and maybe something that you may want to do.
I think that would be beneficial, because we have basically three newbies here.
I do too.
I think that can only help.
I agree.
Okay, so if that's consensus, then I can move forward with
Sign me up.
scheduling that. The other, so that would be one session. Would there be an interest in doing another one on land use? A training on that, talking about variances and conditional use permits.
God, anything, I was just gonna say, anything you can
More
put our
knowledge,
teeth into, I bring it on.
Since we're in on training, one good training aspect is to get the ordinance books in paper, on paper for the, council here. Because back in the day, that was a very useful learning tool, where you don't have to go through a computer and a program and everything else. You got it right there.
Or upgrade Laserfish so it's easier to search. That's just me. Soft copy, I'm okay with it, but Laserfish is just like impossible to search on the darn thing.
But, hard copy,
So, I
that's
wanna go,
doable.
so Brandon said no compete clauses. You couldn't,
Correct. Yeah, he had some concerns with adopting any certain policy or whatever ordinance restricting a consultant that was a former employee for you to
But
work
we
with
could
them.
change the language is what
I
you're
know
saying.
private businesses have that. I'm
Yeah.
not
So
sure.
at that time, when someone, if, you know, someone comes to you and, you know, has a proposal, you certainly can, you don't have to accept the proposal, right?
We can do it on a
You can
case
do-
by case basis.
Yeah, so that was his recommendation.
Right.
Because you're right, businesses do non-competes all the time, I've signed non-competes as well, so,
mhm.
okay. Thank you.
So,
Question, yeah, go ahead.
Who is Sue Palmer? What does she do?
She works for, what's her title? Do you
Vice
remember?
VP of
President.
Finance.
Vice
She's
President.
had the
Finance
same
of
Ben's.
St. Ben's.
And is that who you regularly
We
interface with?
try to meet monthly, it doesn't end up always being monthly, but it's just a
Okay.
way to say, hey, here's what's happening in the city, and then she'll let me
Okay.
know what's happening on college, and
And then upcoming meeting, Community Center Committee. Now that we've taken the next step, should we not, council, reconstitute the so-called Community Center Committee? I mean, I think we can say Frank is not gonna be on it anymore.
Well, I don't, we
We
can
don't
ask
know
him if he
until-
wants to be
until-
on.
What does that-
Until the next meeting, you know, if he shows up, or you can
Yeah,
speak
we,
to
and
that.
that's exactly what we're talking
I
about.
think we
That
should,
group of 12 or whatever it
Yeah.
was, and,
I think it would be, this is a good opportunity to reconstitute it in terms
Sure.
of just other people in the community that should be on it, people that have been on it, that are tired of being on it, or whatever,
Or
as
we
we move
Or
forward.
get a better mix of people on that
Yeah.
committee.
and we do reach out regularly. I mean, we have in the past, but literally, there are some that have tired of showing up, I think, over the course of a couple of years.
So I'd like to see a roster of who is on the committee now,
Sure,
and then we can
Sure.
potentially discuss what it should look like
Sure.
going forward as we begin to engage the architect and that type of thing.
sure. Anything else for Therese? Thank you, Therese. Nate?
Yes, good evening again. So I'll just highlight a few things, and then there's one item that I do need direction from the council on. So economic development, so again, we'll continue that budget discussion at tomorrow's meeting. For the EDA, we did complete some business retention visits this month. The planning, so we did hold our first joint planning board meeting last week. So that was the first one of the year for them. The CVB and the EDA, well, EDA will be looking at city gateway signs, so we've gotten back some quotes and some design options, so we're just having discussion on those. And then the item that I want to ask the council on is we recently launched the survey for the parklet. So as of this afternoon, we've gotten over 200 responses for that. So, from my understanding, the initial, when this idea was coming to the council, the pilot idea was authorized to go to October. I know that there's been some concern and some comment made to remove it on Labor Day weekend. So I've heard both support and concern for that, and I just want to know from the council, what is the direction on, do we keep the Labor Day? Do we keep it to October? Because that really helps me formulate some more additional outreach and what I can do or not do. So just looking for direction on parklet removal.
Okay, I would
thought we had
recommend on Labor Day, because our
Yeah.
maintenance staff is gonna be busy, because they're basically responsible for picking it up and moving it wherever they, choose to take it.
Yes.
So, and that's a busy time of the year, because they're busy they'll be picking up picnic tables probably, and storing them, and getting all that stuff stored away for winter. And, my prediction, winter is probably gonna be here in, first part of October.
At the end of December.
Just the way the weather is going. I mean, who knows?
So, this is a question for Ryan as much as it is for us, because it's his schedule and his group, and they didn't set it up. They're tearing it down, but they didn't do anything in setting it up. That was all volunteers. So they're gonna have to learn what it takes to, unless it's a kerosene and a piece of match, but, there's bolts and stuff, and I don't know if we own it now, right? So then Ryan also has to find a place to store it, I assume. So
Right.
it's a question that Ryan should address, not just the council. But again, we talked about Labor Day weekend.
Okay.
It just has to fit into his schedule.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and that means Ryan and his staff would take it down on the 2nd or 3rd of September. The survey, of which we've gotten 200 responses for, that's a survey that will help us determine if we'd wanna do this again next year. It has nothing to do with, let's keep it going to the end of October.
Correct.
So, I think we should stick to having this be a summer pilot program.
Yeah.
And have it removed by our staff prior to Labor Day Monday,
Sure.
if it works for Ryan.
Again, it's his staff
It's his
doing
call,
it, so it's
yeah.
where he's at with the remaining early fall tasks.
Do you need like a motion along those lines, Nate or Mayor? or
Are we in
anything, or just-
consensus?
Yeah.
Counselors, are we in
I'm good with
Does that
consensus?
sound okay?
Yeah.
Kelly, you okay with
Kelly?
that?
Yeah,
I thought we already
sure.
did that.
We talked about it
Okay.
last
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah,
We're good.
we're good.
I think
So.
Nate's just confirming it.
Yeah, yep. So, other than that, that's all that well, one last thing. There's a great resource that I did provide a link to it summarizes all the bill and law changes from,
Oh, yeah.
this
Oh,
last
great.
one. So please
Thank
check
you.
it out. The league did an awesome job with making it reader friendly and summarizing information. So check that out when you get an
Thank you.
opportunity.
Yeah, thank
That's
you.
all I got.
Lori, anything else tonight?
I just wanted to bring to your attention one thing with utility billing, just as a reminder that we are gonna start shut-offs again, starting with the utility bill that was due today. So we'll be sending out notices tomorrow, and the first shut-off date, I believe, is September 2nd. So that'll be new. We haven't done that in a year and a half. We did certify any accounts that was over 3 periods past due the last bill due date, but there are a few others that are a couple periods past due. Staff will work with members to set up payment plans if that helps get people caught up for those that are far behind. There's also resources. I know there was some stimulus money that was passed through like Health and Human Services, I believe, that can help with some utility accounts. So we encourage people who might need a little extra help to reach out to the county's office with the Health and Human Services. I don't have really a direct number for that, but I think they would be willing to help out people and at least get them in the right direction. Also, I've been training in Kim, our new finance technician, and so she's doing well, picking up things. I'm throwing a lot at her, so I think she goes home pretty tired every day. So that's going well, but it's just gonna take some time for her to get caught up, so appreciate everybody's patience, just kind of working through her training period.
Lori, for the courtesy of our newer counselors, could you quickly review the process of shut-offs and all that? The steps we take?
Right, so in our city ordinance, we have the process set up where the bills would be due on the 15th of the month, of the even number months. Since the 15th was Sunday, we have the bill due date on the 16th. We will send out notices, and we have to give 15 days for them to pay or to call us and set up a payment plan if necessary. So on the morning of the 2nd, we give the maintenance staff the list of anybody who's not paid that we haven't heard from, and they will go out and start shutting off water. If you are shut off, it's another $150 reconnect fee. So we try to encourage everybody to at least call us and arrange something if need be. We're more than happy to work with people. We don't want delinquent accounts lingering out there forever. But we'll do the best that we can to accommodate a payment plan to help them get caught up.
And we do send notices, let everybody know. We've just had some issues with people and getting rehooked up and stuff. So just so that's the process we follow. Any other questions for Lori? Ryan, what do you got? Oh, hey, Ryan. Dwight, how about you?
Mine is pretty short here. I did meet with Northland Business Solutions. They're the ones that are working on upgrading, or they did upgrade our interview rooms in the PD. We had talked about it earlier with Treese and a few of us, Ryan, about our failing security system that's around the outside of the building as the cameras are all starting to drop offline little by little after 3 years, rather not stick any money into it and get an estimate, see what it's gonna cost us. So we potentially may have that presentation at the workshop. If there's not room, it'll be at a later date. Just looking for they're gonna probably come and do a presentation and show what their system is capable of and what they'll stand behind a little bit better than the first system that was installed. But that was this past week. Again, we are kind of still seeing some vandalisms at some city parks. Ryan was talking about it this morning with me a little bit as well. So the areas that we address as the 5 buildings are one of the problem areas we've got that we did get an estimate on already, so that might all play a factor in one of our workshops when we talk about them. We had a great turnout for National Night Out on August 3rd. We did have 3 registered events. They did much better this year about communicating in advance. We were able to get officers to all 3 of them, so it worked out very well. As far as staff goes, Alex is approximately halfway through his field training right now, so we're hoping to have him off of field training somewhere towards the end of September. And with Reese is starting this week. The good thing about Reese is he's actually already a part-time officer in Melrose and has been on his own since last September. So we expect that being he's already using our computer system that we use in the county, it'll be much quicker than with Alex, who started out green. So a little bit of experience there, so we're hoping he'll be done with field training about the same time that Alex is done. And then like Therese talked about, we're gonna hopefully get through the records clerk position and score those applications, because last week with Mary being on vacation, our records division just shuts down. By the time we get somebody else trained in, officers coming and going, it's just impossible to respond to it. So we basically now hang a sign in the window that says closed till next week, so. As far as that goes, and then upcoming events, students are kind of returning right now. We are seeing a lot of the athletes returning, a lot of them that are doing the 9-month or even a 10-month, as this is leases. They started August 1st. So activity is definitely picking up, and we're getting ready for the upcoming year. If anybody has any questions, otherwise that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Questions, anyone?
What kind of plan did you come up with to address this fall, this school year?
As far as what?
As far as controlling the behavior of the students and so forth. I know it was a big issue in the springtime, you know, in a certain area, and I'll just tell you, there's 3 houses that have moved or moving because of that.
Yep.
You know, so you just lost probably 15 citizens, you know, just because of student disruption,
Certainly.
you know. But I know we discussed, you know, what's the plan?
Yep. And up till now, that's what our plan has been. We've been working on adding this full-time officer that we were gonna expand in our budget position July 1st, but with 2 resignations, it's kind of tough right now. We're just working on getting back up to full staff right now. But that is our goal, is to move more towards the evening hours. And yet you can't always bank on all of our lively activities at evenings. A lot of times it can be daytime on weekends and everything else.
Right.
So, yeah, we've been down to minimal coverage right now. Even this past weekend, we had a bike rally that came through town. They came in on a Monday asking for assistance on a Saturday. We have 1 officer on. I said, I can't bring anybody in on overtime with less than 5 days' notice. So we did the best we could with 1 officer.
Well, back in the day, we had that incident too. Probably 1978, had a group of Hell's Angels come through town. And our police chief at that time, there was only 2 officers. He ran them out of town without a gun.
Well, moving forward, is there any connection with
Well,
St.
you don't want to know the story or what?
No, not that I don't want
No,
to,
we
but kind of looking at, you know, working with the colleges, you know, in the sense of, you know, can we do that? You
Well,
know?
we do meet the first Wednesday at 8 o'clock. It'll resume again coming up here next month in September, the first Wednesday of every month at 8 o'clock in the morning. And we do brainstorm and talk about what upcoming events, homecomings, student
Yeah,
dances.
because we have the student presidents, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yep, so we'll usually keep in contact about what we're seeing and everything else as well, so.
I mean, do you feel that's been helping?
I mean, the communication is always welcomed, you know, the best we can, and, you know, you try to stay ahead of it, but it's always one of those things where you try to evolve with what's all happening, so.
Who do you meet with again at St. Ben's?
We meet with both, the college deans at both colleges, so St. John, St. Ben's, and both directors of security.
Right,
And
and
then
I talked to the 2 dean of students, whatever you call them, last spring or somewhere. And they, at that point in time, they would love to have, you know, the council present at those meetings. Because they had issues that weren't being addressed
Well,
about specific bars and so forth and so
yeah,
on.
and I attended those meetings, and I think we addressed them pretty well.
Well, I'm just saying what these 2 deans told me.
I know,
They would love to have our council people at those meetings.
and I do attend those meetings. So I did wanna, I wasn't gonna skip around. Anything else, Dwight? Sorry.
No, that's it, go for it.
So to my mayor reports, I've been meeting with Rhonda and some of the connections we've been making between District 742, CSB, and the request for gym space and the community ed people. Community ed's putting together a flyer specific to St. Joe that we're gonna wanna put in utility billing for just the classes community ed will offer out here. Plus, we're working on open gym space, not only for seniors at CSB, but also for open gym time at Kennedy. And that'll be part of the community ed offering in CSB Connection. We're not exactly sure how they're gonna do the registration for CSB, but seniors can come in and use the gym on certain days. The other kind of bad news is the Minnesota Mayor's Convention, which is supposed to be here like next month, is kind of on hold. There's been like a 70% drawdown. Nobody's registering for the event this year. They're waiting on COVID, kind of the Delta variant or whatever. So we're having a meeting tomorrow to discuss financial implications and further actions. There's probably a pretty good chance we're gonna cancel it, so. They talked about doing a virtual event, but that didn't go over very well last time. I'm just letting you know, I'll have an update at the end of this week on whether we're gonna host it or not, and so that will go back to the CVB at some point. Any questions? All right. Item 10, I'll make a motion pursuant to Minnesota State Statute 13D05, subdivision 3C3, to move into a closed session to consider sale offer for interest in real estate owned by Riverbad Stadium LLC, PID 84535300.0288.
Second.
Motion and second to move into closed meeting. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are going to close meeting. And we're gonna meet in conference room, right? We'll move into, how many are there?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I will second.
Motion and second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all very much. Oh. So my opinion on the fire truck is, every time the fire board goes